Okay, welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Divine Roots. Today we are talking about the idea of running from yourself. Why do people run from themselves? Good morning, Paul.
Good morning. Great to be here.
Yeah. So you mentioned this topic this morning, and we were kind of drawn to it, and you discussed the idea of where we are as a society right now with this informational overload. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Oh, yes, it's a very good topic. A lot of people, they come to my office to see me and they always say, Paul, I have everything. I have a wonderful job, beautiful family. Everything is going well. But I just don't feel alive. I don't feel comfortable in my own body. When I come home, I feel like the walls just make me feel so uncomfortable. Like they're not comfortable in their own home. And everything is well. So they ask me, why do I feel this way? And I always tell them it's the inner pressure of informational overload. So usually it used to happen with the males around 40 or 50, they call the midlife crisis. Now, because of so much information and people grow up so fast, it happens a lot earlier. So you got information from your phone, information from the TV, all types of informational streams, and people don't realize that the brain is a processor. It could only process so much information. Now, we have information that's running in the background from our childhood, let's say trauma.
Yeah, see, I was going to talk about that actually. So because what you're describing is definitely a symptom of the age that we're living in now. But I have to imagine that this feeling of not feeling quite right, even through success and whatnot, not feeling at home in our own bodies, is something people have experienced for all of time.
Now it's more, because back then people had to survive. Back then people were not ready to go deep within. Some people did, but they were radical. They were hung, killed, burned. Anybody who was asking deep questions and going within, tapping into their inner self. Now, I think the universe is pushing us because it's time that all these information that comes out, you could learn about so many different things, and consciousness is growing. Basically, you're broadening your awareness. So now it's a little different. Now we live in a special time. Now people have a choice. Now they either run from this, their essence, their soul that's screaming out loud, pay attention, and they run and they tap into those all these informational streams and kind of use them as a gateway not to go within. But before, you had to, you didn't have comforts like we do today. You had to hunt for food, or you had to take care of the household, the farm, and it was a little different. The information wasn't there.
So is it, and now that would be information, but there's something to be said for this idea of, yeah, I had to hunt for my food. I had to work to feed the family. And there's a sense of gratitude that might come with something like that versus having too much and just disposing of all of your extras and looking at an expiration date versus having to go out and hunt something down and kill it and cook it and really pray to God and thank God for what's right in front of me, because I don't know if I'm going to get to eat again.
Yeah, we used to be more instinctual human beings. We had to be to survive. Now, our time is to become more. We use our instinct for a certain degree, but we need to go deeper now a little bit more. So you're right. When you hunt food, you pray. They prayed and said, "Thank you, God. Thank you, Lord. Thank you, universe, for this food." That was more of that other spiritual side of hunting and stuff. But we were more instinctual back then. Back then was a little different. It was more survival. Now we got the basics down as human beings. We know how to build homes, save ourselves from the four elements, not to get cold or too much heat. We have AC. We could get food easily for the most part around the world. So we have plenty of time to ponder on bigger questions now. But people are afraid because they have so much baggage they're carrying. So they're afraid to ponder what's really inside of them. So they run. How do they run? They run by tapping into other informational streams.
So let's before we move forward, I want to backtrack and just ask you a quick question. So with what we've just talked about, I've heard from a few people who know from firsthand experience that the sense of community and the sense of family and the sense of spirituality, but and this may deal with Christianity or really any church. It seems to be stronger in the more impoverished or oppressed a people are. It's like they're forced to God because they have no other option, and then things seem or feel to the people I'm speaking to, because they would go visit and come back because they'd say they have family over there. They'd say it feels, though, so much more peaceful. Like if people don't feel like they're unhappy. And I found that to be an interesting thing to think about and to wonder. And I'm curious your thoughts on this. If you think that there's a pendulum swinging, that people need to wake up, or if God's going to shake us up to force people back to Him, and in your case, Source.
Mm-hmm. Those countries you're talking about, the countries that don't have much, the people don't have much, right?
Yeah, that or even when people are oppressed,
Mm-hmm.
when like we brought up the people out in China recently in a previous podcast, and the underground Christian church out there it's like one of the biggest there is, because they're not allowed to have it, and they have to sneak Bibles and they have to pray underground, and the amount of faith that it takes just to survive is incredible, and because of that, it's growing, it's thriving through the oppression, not through the success and wealth and prosperity and laziness of spirituality. And that's what I think is part of this rampant informational overload, is like, who do we listen to? There's so much out there, and there's so many different takes on different things, and you're being bombarded by all this information that you're not able to center down and really understand what's most important. So the question that I'm pondering is, and I think a lot of people have thought this throughout time, but at what point does God intervene in order to shake things up and call people back? Because I think there's a desire there on both parts to be connected to Source, and Source connected down.
That's a lot of questions in one. As you know, I come from a similar background. The place I come from used to be communism, right? So they didn't allow much of religion or any other spiritual practices.
So you went through that.
Yeah. So what I found out, my ancestors practiced, but they practiced on a more genuine level. When everybody moved to the States, it became, the pendulum swung too much onto more of an extreme level here, what I see. And my ancestors would not agree how the people today practice, let's say even religion in general.
Mm-hmm.
So they were a little bit more on a more genuine, free flow, more spiritual level than now. Now it's more mechanical, more fear based. I'm talking about institutions.
Well, and back to what we were talking about, it's commercialized.
It's commercialized.
I mean, that's the whole thing, in my opinion. The whole problem with religion and why people have an issue with religion in general is because they've commercialized it. And it drives me crazy.
Capitalism.
I can't. Well, but it's not. It's not capitalism.
No, I mean, like here, everything is.
Yeah, right. But the church, and I guess it'll just always be that way because people are going to want to be successful and they're going to want to, grow and expand and different things. But as soon as they stop telling the truth for sake of greed, little lies, they add up. And the tiniest little something that I did just to get something out of somebody, that is this like seed of negativity that will spread through an entire organization.
Who wants to lose power? Nobody.
Yeah.
And no matter what, they want to hold power, and they will manipulate, and they're there for a reason. We have to be thankful. Why? Because they help us to realize certain things, like you did. Realize certain things, what works for you and what doesn't. We have to go through those experiences, and those experiences actually wake us up slowly. Okay, so going back to that, back to the same question, it's interesting. You have, let's say, the same religion, but so many different people have different viewpoints from the same book. We have 100 different viewpoints, different leaders, different way they lead people. And people get confused. Do I follow this? Do I follow that? That's one part. Then you have information overload from, like I said, the ancestral stuff that was passed down and still running in the background. Stuff that you went through when you were a kid, when you were a adult, that experiences that you went through that you didn't take care of yet. It's all running in the background. Plus, you have the battle within. What is right? I'm trying to be a good human being, good person. Is religion the way? Is religion plus spirituality is the way? Which is the way to be correct? And there's so many different ways that are correct. In my view, everything is correct. It's all about your how you look at things. Like we talked about the intention before, all right? If your intention is positive and helpful to others and yourself, constructive, beneficial, it's good. That's a good way to go about it. But if it's manipulative, you want to have control through the same pathway, but you want control, you want this, you want that, manipulation of people, fear, guilt, that's already no good.
Yeah. Or if it's destructive.
Mm-hmm.
And I think most people, myself included, would be the most destructive with themselves. That's where our destructive behavior begins. And if we don't root it out and we don't come to terms with certain things, that's when we can start to feel ourselves drifting or feeling sad or in this case feeling, as we're talking today, about this inner pressure from within of like, am I good enough? Am I doing enough? Am I successful enough? All these questions that can haunt us and keep us up at night.
You talked about when does God intervene? That in the inner pressure, that your inner, basically your soul, your spirit is screaming and trying to shake you up from within. That's why you feel so uncomfortable in your own body. They want to show you that you have to start asking yourself deep questions. The reality you live in, this whole reality you live in, is a training ground for your consciousness, a training ground for you to finally understand that, wait a minute, there's a bigger picture, there's a whole universe within me. All the answers are within me. Everything is within me. And it's just I have to start looking in a different places. So the information is good out here. It's like little gold nugget here, a little gold nugget here. And we as human beings, we try to grab on here, in every different place. And sometimes we feel so fulfilled with that information, saying, oh man, I'm getting somewhere. Something activates within us.
So when certain things are overwhelming, are you saying that it can get to a point where we finally start asking the right questions because we are forced to?
It's like torture.
It's like torture. So in a way, are we doing that to ourselves on purpose to try to get closer to asking the right questions, and we start like subconsciously doing this thing where we're finding our way closer to the answer because there was no other way?
We were told incorrectly. We were lied to. They took the blueprint away from us purposely for us to stay confused, for us to stay instinctual, more animalistic like. They took the blueprint of spirituality a little bit away. So I look at it this way. If you're making a soup, organic soup, and you're using 99% of organic ingredients, and you put 1% of rat poison in the soup, 1%, just one, or even 0.5%, what happens to the whole soup?
Poison.
Poison. So you could have 99% of accurate information in something, a book or whatever it is. But if you put one sentence in the whole book, one sentence that is not good, the energy of the book changes completely, and we get lost. And look what's happening now. Purposely, with the information on overload, there's some good information. We have to be very careful what we listen to, what we pay attention to, because that's where our energy goes. So with all this information, what did they do to us now in the modern world? They confused us even more. They tore us apart even more, fragmented us even more. We were fragmented before, now we're even more fragmented. At least before, when we had the farm and the kids, we knew, okay, we need to farm. The biggest problem was for us, the rain is coming, or the drought is coming, or stuff like that. That was the biggest worry. They prayed for rain. They were more afraid for their lives.
Yeah.
It was more. Now, it's a completely different. We grew as human race, slowly, but we grew, and now they know how to manipulate us through information, and they overload us because our brain could only process so much information, and the information actually is stored in your DNA. So what happens? Your DNA is so old from your ancestors. How old is it? And it's like a hard drive. It stores all this information. A lot of the information is still not worked out. It's still opened and processing because your, let's say, grandparents didn't work on something and it passed down to you. So all this stuff that opened up and still processing, how much can a human being take? Plus what we have now. So what we need to do is disconnect slowly from all these informational streams. Pick informational streams that we think work for us, whatever it is, whatever your journey, whatever your path is, whatever works for you, whatever you resonate with. That's the stream you choose, and you go with it. And then your inner source, let's call it, right? Your inner guidance will guide you what is right for you, what is wrong. At one point, this stream is good, then you move on to the next stream. Then you move up to the next stream. But we have to start looking within into our own intuition. And what's happening, we pay attention too much on what everybody is saying, what's happening. Our system cannot handle it. And that's why we get so overwhelmed. It's not just family, kids, wife, but we are torn apart between everything. So there's only pieces, small pieces of you with the family, small pieces at work, small pieces in the past. You're still working out your traumas from the past when you were a kid, your situation that you went through your whole life, still that you're judging your performance and how you did, your choice making still open. So all of that has to be worked out.
So let's go now. Let's dive right into topic here. So what do you mean exactly by running from yourself?
So It's very simple. When we have our inner war, and all of us do, there comes a point in our lives where we look at society and we think a nice car, beautiful house, or a wife or a husband or our kids, that's what's going to make us happy. Or vice versa, being single, whatever it is. And people, they strive for that, they work for that, they get that. Then work, trying to make something out of them, because society says you have to become a billionaire or a millionaire to that's when you mean something.
Yeah.
You know, and what's happening somewhere down deep inside of you, they start calling your name. Listen, yeah, it's good. You need to be comfortable. You need to survive. You need to have some sort of roof over your head. You need to travel. But is that really everything? There's something bigger than that. You need to start looking within. And you say, no, I don't have time for that. I have a big project I have to finish at work. We'll get back to you later. And they kick the can down the road. Eventually, that pressure from the other side gets more and more and more and more. And eventually, a person starts to go at war with one himself. They start having an inner conflict. And you start running away from that inner conflict. You don't want to pay attention because it's so loud now that it's getting louder than this world.
That makes a lot of sense. And so to drown out the loudness of that, people might then counterbalance that with something big and very loud in order to try to overcome it, right? Like a midlife crisis type thing where someone goes out and buys the new car or does something to try to like really, hide and run even faster because it's like it's coming after me.
Addictions, habits, informational streams, sex, alcohol, drugs, food, just putting your attention into other things completely drowning yourself in the 5 physical senses, pleasure, trying to look for any bodily way of putting your attention external instead of internal, because internal is scary. You're afraid to actually meet your true self. You're afraid to go and have a relationship with yourself. Everybody is. They're afraid because it's scary, because there's so much unworked out, scary places within you. It's dark. That's what we call the shadow work, right? Mm-hmm. That it's everything that's dark, doesn't have light, is scary. It's true. That's why we run from that. And unfortunately, what's going to happen, the pressure externally is going to get so much with time. There's going to be so much going on that people will be forced to look deeply within. And those people who are still going to be running, then the physical body, so the mental, emotional body is already overwhelmed. Now, physical body is the last to go. We're going to have a lot of different diseases all of a sudden coming up. Why? Because the body cannot handle it. The body cannot handle the pressure from the mind and the emotional suppression. And it's just going to start breaking down. And people who are not working on themselves and trying to look for a way out in a different way and repeat the same. This is the thing. People are so interesting. They repeat the same thing, like Albert Einstein said. Repeating the same thing over and over and thinking there's going to be a different result. That's the crazy part. They repeat the same thing over and over again, and they think there's going to be a different result. And as they could see for thousands and upon thousands of years, no, we have to change something. Something within us have to change. Our habits, how we do things. The routine is good to a certain extent, but we have to break those routines to have change in our life. Yeah. Otherwise, we're stuck in our routine, and then we're uncomfortable breaking the routines. That's very, very important. And the easiest thing to do is run. Run from yourself. Because it takes courage. It takes grit. It takes so much sacrifice to actually stop running, look back and say, I'm done running. I'm going to gather my strength and start going inside. Don't have to do it overnight. Baby steps. And with baby steps, that way you could keep somewhat of this reality going, this life that you have going, and balance things out a little bit. But your relationships are going to change. Everything is going to change in a positive way.
All right, this is good. I think this is about where we should wrap this up. I want maybe to pose a question to our audience here from around the world, by the way. So welcome to everyone who is listening and watching. I'd like everyone to ask themselves, maybe close your eyes, take a deep breath, and think, what am I running from right now? What's going on in my life? Am I avoiding this relationship with myself, my relationship with Source, with God, or am I pulling closer to that? And like Paul said, it's one step at a time. There's no rush. It's a matter of slowly working your way to this more peaceful, more loving, more connected way of being. But it will be scary. It can be scary, and that's okay. It's okay to know that, to understand it, and to walk into it, because on the other side, there's a lot of good to be had.
Human beings are beautiful, gorgeous beings. Unfortunately, they don't look at themselves that way. They hate themselves. They punish themselves. They judge themselves. They want to constantly torture themselves. My message is stop, because you are such wonderful potential. You have something divine in you. Cultivate it, share it, and grow it, and love yourself. Because when you get once you start having relationship with yourself, your relationships externally will start getting genuine. But right now, they're not even close to being genuine. Because if you have that inner war, if you're running from yourself, you have all that pressure, what type of relationship is going to be based on those things? Fear, weakness, all those things. And we're going to have relationship based on those factors. So love yourself, forgive yourself. Once you forgive yourself, you forgive others automatically. And heal. Layer after layer after layer. Start healing.
It's a beautiful message.
Thank you.
Thank you, Paul.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. And thank you all for listening. This has been the Divine Roots podcast. Paul, remind us how we can get to your website and how people can come work with you.
wisdominyou.com, and they could reach me on that website, and I'll be more than happy to assist them.
I know in Paul's, he has gotten very, very busy too with his work. But he'll put you in the queue.
I'll make time.
Yeah. All right. Thank you all. God bless.
Thank you.